Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you enjoying your lunch. It is now time for us to proceed with the lunch plenary. And of course, this will be on a world awash in oil and gas. What's next? Like now to invite up on stage, ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Director, International Energy Agency, to address us. Please welcome Dr. Fateh Birol.
So, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you, and please enjoy your healthy food. So we had first vegetables and then chicken with vegetables again. Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for providing us with healthy food. I will speak here and I will not be able to eat the dessert, so you enjoy your dessert, and which is not very healthy in general, they say, everything with sugar. And I would like to tell you a few things which are not perhaps so sweet as the dessert you are going to eat. The question is about oil and gas, but if you allow me, in the next 25 minutes or so, I will talk to you a bit on the investment in general, the global energy investment, where it is going, oil, gas, but also competing fuels, coal and renewable electricity generation. But before starting my words, let me once again express my gratitude to Mr. Minister Iswaran and Singaporean government for being now a part of the International Energy Agency family. I am sure IEA and Singapore together will make a lot of serious work, concrete work, which will be beneficial for all the nations in this region and beyond, and I am very much looking forward to that. Now, I wanted to start with investments. At the IEA, we thought we should know if IEA, who else, should measure every year how much the energy sector invests in different parts of our system. So if you take something seriously in life, you first have to measure it. And to our knowledge, for the first time, a global measurement started, and we recently published a report. First, look at the investments in 2015. What happened to them? Globally, we had 1.8 trillion investment for the energy sector worldwide. And compared to the previous year, there was a decline by 8%. Decline in global energy investments. And when you look at the investment trends, what we are seeing is while oil and gas still have about half of the global energy budget, there is a broad shift of investments going to clean energy technologies. For example, for the power sector, renewables take a very strong share, about 17%, and renewables and energy efficiency investments together make about 30%, 1/3 of the global energy investments, highlighting the momentum in the direction of clean energy. So therefore, we can understand that the clean energy is not only in the statements, PowerPoint slides, in speeches, but it is happening in the investment money in dollar terms. A few words on oil, which is the main subject of this very session. Oil investments, ladies and gentlemen, naturally every year grows globally. There is an increase. But in the year 2015 and 2016, 2 years in a row, we see a decline in the investments. And according to our estimates, we may well see a third year decline in the oil and gas investments. And this is happening for the first time in the history of oil and gas. We have never seen 3 years in a row oil and gas investments are declining. And this has a lot of implications. For example, since the investment for the exploration to look for oil is decreasing, last year we had the lowest amount of oil discovered since 1960, 6 decades. We have the lowest amount of new sanctioned projects for oil and gas last year, since 4 decades. This has implications, and we will see that this lack of investment will catch us in the next years to come when the demand, when you look at also demand growth coming in a robust way. As Mr. Minister mentioned this morning, we expect this year over 1 million barrels per day of growth in oil demand, and next year as well. So this brings me slowly to the oil subject, which is very much in the discussion with in the context of what will the oil producers do? Are they going to cut or freeze the production, and how will it affect the markets? When we look at the last few years, we have seen that the Russian production, a major oil producer, was more or less stable despite the lower prices, and US production started to decline. Why? Because to produce oil in the United States is more expensive than producing in Middle East or elsewhere, lower cost areas, and we have seen that the key Middle East producers, such as Saudi Arabia, increase the production. So as a result of that, we are today seeing substantial amount of oil in the markets. Stocks are high, and we have about 1.2 million barrels per day of demand. And in this case, we believe in the absence of any intervention in the markets, oil markets will rebalance only towards the end of 2017. Of course, if there is intervention, this rebalancing may well be earlier, but I prefer that the oil prices are determined by the market forces rather than interventions themselves. Lower oil prices also ended up with another record. I will tell you some records in a minute on renewables, but it's an oil side. The record is the share of Middle East oil producers in the global oil production reached about 35%, which is the highest since 1970s. Such a high share of Middle East producers, and while most of the Middle East producers are very responsible, such as Saudi Arabia, we have seen many years, given the current turmoil in the region, this is an important development to take note of. Moving from oil to another fuel, which is very much at the heart of the interests of this very region, and of course other regions as well, LNG. We are seeing a major wave of new LNG coming to the markets. This is the situation currently, and this is the additions of LNG capacity, mainly coming from US and Australia. In the next 5 years, we will see that the current capacity will increase by 1/3, substantial increase from US and Australia, and this increase will bring a lot of flexibility, a lot of LNG to the markets. And in my view, a window of opportunity for many countries in the region. and window of opportunity for Australian and US gas industry if they are, forgive me for the expression, they are not so stingy. Why do I say this? There are certain areas I think the gas industry need to look carefully to make their fuel more attractive. And this includes the bringing more flexibility to the contracts and perhaps to give a second look at some issues such as the destination clause and to make it much more attractive for the consumers. The fact that there is a lot of gas supply coming doesn't necessarily mean that the importers will import it if the conditions are not right. Gas has a lot of advantages, but in order to make it more attractive, there is a need to put more market elements in the picture. This on the supply side. And on the demand side of LNG, what we see that there is an important shift in global LNG trade. We are expecting that the imports from Japan and Korea to decline. Japan decline will be depending on how quickly the country will go back to its own nuclear power plants and less need for LNG. But surely there are some other countries who are going to import LNG, and this very region. In this very region, ASEAN, in the year 2010, there were no single country which was importing LNG. 2010, no LNG importers in ASEAN countries. And today, 2016, we have 4 countries with LNG import capacity: Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. 2 others are in the pipeline, Philippines and Vietnam, perhaps in the next decade. So therefore, together with China and India, we expect that there is a shift in the LNG import destination in the next years to come. With the lower gas prices for the time being, I say for the time being, perhaps we'll discuss. My colleague Sharif, who is a very knowledgeable colleague in terms of gas and oil, will tell you perhaps more. For the time being, the prices are low in terms of gas, but when we look at the investment trends there, we don't know how they're going to develop in the future. Therefore, there is a need, in my view, gas industry to make itself more attractive for the consumers. Now, a bit of another fuel. When we talk about gas, and when we talk about this very region, we need to talk another fuel, which is coal. You may like it, you may not like it, but coal is there. And gas has to compete with coal. Yes, gas has a lot of advantages, being flexible, less carbon dioxide emissions, less air pollution, which is extremely important for this very region. But there is also an issue of the cost. When we look at the investments last year for gas and coal in the region, we see that the coal investments were by far higher than gas in terms of power plants. So we can talk as much as we want about COP21, 22, 23, but this is happening in the real life. Don't expect me to say sweet things. This is what is happening here. These are the power plants which are being erected. And for me, the alarming news is that when we look at the coal power plants, one by one, how modern they are, how efficient they are, we have seen that about 1/3 of the all power plants installed last year in Asian markets were subcritical coal-fired power plants, which very low efficiency. What does it mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means by building that subcritical coal-fired power plants, you are locking in. We are looking in that country, that region, that city, and with this low efficiency coal-fired power plants and the SO2, NOx, air pollution, as well as CO2 will be a part of their lives. So therefore, it is important to look at the market realities, and this is what the market shows us. Why it is happening? Very simple. When you look at the infrastructure investments you have to make for 1 gigawatt of a power plant in Asia, there is a huge cost advantage for coal.